What's good, everybody, and welcome to an episode of the Amateur Like a TIS podcast with your host, yours truly, Jai Shields, here on this Tuesday, May the 27th. Hope you guys had a good, safe Memorial Day holiday here in 2025. We got good show for you here today, obviously. The NBA Conference Finals rolls on in the West and the East. I give you my 2 cents as the T-Wolves are on the brink of going to Cancun for the summer with the Oklahoma City Thunder taking a 3-1 series advantage with their win last night in Minnesota. Obviously, you have the Eastern Conference Finals between the Knicks and the Pacers with a must-win Game 4 after the Knicks must-win Game 3 on Sunday. Game 4 tonight and in Indianapolis before the series shifts back to New York City for Game 5 coming up on Thursday. I get to Jim Irsay. Did not get to him in the last episode, so we will give you my 2 cents on Jim Irsay, who passed away last Wednesday at the age of 64, if I'm not mistaken, died in his sleep last week. Give my 2 cents on the late Jim Irsay and some baseball here on this show. Going to be a quick show. I mean, there's really not that much to discuss. I'm not in. I don't know why I feel like I'm in a funk of a mood. Not necessarily in a bad mood, but not all up and bopping and cheering and all happy and everything. So it's just. So I'm not and I don't have the energy for me to had a long weekend, job duty calls at work. So that wore me out. It's just, and I'm still emotionally reeling from just was one of the more taxing school years I've ever gone through. And all my years being in school from obviously K through 12 and in college and everything else. So I don't have the energy and I don't have the stamina to scream and yell about Mike Elias and the Orioles. If possible, I like to get through a show without me talking Orioles baseball during the baseball season for a change if need be. You guys know I'm not a hockey guy, so if you want my thoughts on the NHL conference finals, this ain't the show for you. If you want tennis talk with the French Open that began on Sunday, this is not the podcast for you. So I mean, nobody cares about the NCAA lacrosse championships that took place up in Foxborough. Over the weekend. So no lacrosse, no tennis, no hockey. I can't scream about the Orioles. They split with the Boston Red Sox. Them splitting a series with the Red Sox in the same series, by the way, in which they gave up over 15 runs in a game for like the third or the fourth time this season. That series split had more to do about the Red Sox being a unserious baseball team that you can never trust. I mean, now I understand there's still a lot of season left, but damn it, we've now passed the Memorial Day quarter pole, the Memorial Day benchmark of the season. And when the Boston Red Sox are still going about their merrily way as they have been the last few years with staying hovering slightly above or under or exactly at the 500 mark. And now you throw into the fact that they're not going to be without, I should say, Alex Bregman for an undisclosed long-term period amounts of time because of a quad strain. He had to come out of the game one of the doubleheader against the aforementioned Orioles this past Friday. I mean, I can't take them seriously. I can't take them. Will they be better than the Orioles? Well, duh, obviously. Will they finish? No. Will they be in the playoff race? One would think on paper. At some point, you get deeper into the season, yeah. But in terms of the Red Sox being some big-time juggernaut in the American League, I misread that horrifically because their bullpen still is not very good. They got 0-run support for Garrett Crochet yesterday in Milwaukee on Memorial Day, who pitched his ass off. And the Red Sox, it's like they used up all their offense in winning a game and winning game one of the doubleheader on Saturday via the walk-off Rafi Devers because the Orioles, their brain turns into apple pie when you tell them, hey, don't let your best player beat you, and they're hell-bent on just letting the Devers or Judge or whoever. It's the dumbest thing in the world with this team. But since that game, the Boston Red Sox have done absolutely nothing offensively. And like I said, no Bregman for extended period amounts of time. It's the Boston Red Sox. I gotta see them be competent, see them be a serious baseball team in order for me to believe it. I'm expressing a little bit of a buyer's remorse for me being high on the Red Sox preseason and picking them to make it to the American League Championship Series, let alone pick them to win a division, because it looks the way it is right now, and even that's not going to. I mean, when you are when you're 3 and what are you 3 and no 3 no 2 and 2 is 4. When you're 4 and 3 against the worst team in the division and the worst team in the American League, not named the Chicago White Sox, I can't take you seriously to being some big time contender coming out of the American League. I'm sorry. I just can't. So, a little quick baseball note, getting off the beaten path. I get to more baseball as the show progresses. But, I mean, really not much to talk about. We talked about the tush push of the National Football League. We, OTAs, who cares? Joey Bosa, who literally is made out of glass, isn't going to show up for Buffalo at OTAs this week because of, I mean, how the hell you strain your calf in the middle of the damn offseason to the point you can't even, you are not medically cleared to participate in OTAs. And with this guy, it's just, I don't understand why the Buffalo, I understand he's a nice talent, but it's, why the Buffalo Bills wasted money giving it to a guy that literally cannot stay on the field for anything. I have absolutely no idea. Absolutely no idea why. Really not much in the National Football League to discuss. We screamed and yelled because the NFL VP scheduling actually came out and said, you know what, Joe Burrow has a point. Why in the world have we scheduled the Bengals to play the Ravens on a short week? Prime time Thursday night football in the middle of November in Baltimore for the third consecutive year in the row. Meanwhile, the Ravens, every single time they come to Cincinnati in the regular season, it's a standard 1 o'clock game. So they finally admitted some guilt. Now, the thing that makes no sense to me is that if you knew did they think they were going to do that, knowing how big and how hyped up the NFL schedule release is and thinking that nobody was going to notice, nobody was going to say anything. If I noticed and said something, you damn Skippy knew that whether somebody within Joe Burrow's camp, Joe Burrow himself, or anybody outside, or I should say in addition to Joe Burrow within the Cincinnati Bengals organization, whether they be personnel, coaching staff, players, whatever, somebody was going to sit there and say, damn, they got to go to Baltimore for the third straight year in a row on a Thursday night in the middle of the season. 4 years in a row, it's prime time, with 2022 being the Sunday night game. And yet again, the Ravens, when they come to the jungle, it's a standard 1 o'clock game. No 4:25 game CBS. No Monday night or a Sunday night game. Just standard 1 o'clock. Like these are two 5-5 football teams getting together, and your run of the mill NFL Sunday divisional in season game. It makes no sense. It makes no sense. So for them to turn around and admit guilt, I mean, that's just, I don't understand where the NFL's coming on their part, because you knew that was a problem and that was a thing the previous 2-3 seasons. I mean, and again, I got no problems with the Bengals, and it's not necessarily about, stop crying, it's about the principle. Because you take a look for the last 3 consecutive seasons, 23, 24, and now 25, the Bengals will have, for their road game against their equal in the division, they will have for the third straight year in a row a truncated amount of time to rest from their previous game that Sunday and preparation time for the upcoming game. That they will have a truncated amount of time to rest and prepare mentally and physically for a in-division game against a Super Bowl contending opponent that is going to mean the world, most likely, Thanksgiving night. When on the flip side, the Ravens have the standard week of preparation and rest to work with to prepare to play Cincinnati in Cincinnati. Now, if these were out of divisional rivals or cross-conference rivals, that'd be one thing. But they've played each other every single year since the Ravens came into existence in 1996. Every single year. And it's not right that when those games are everything, not just from entertainment aspect for us as football fans coast to coast, but in terms of what team has the edge over the other to win the division. The division, damn near every single year, has come down to the wire since 2021. And those are by far the two best teams in the division. You would think that at one point in time or another, you'd give them somewhat. I understand that you can't make it entirely perfect, but you would think that they would not at least appear to go out of the way so many times to make life as difficult for the Bengals as humanly possible when it comes to playing on the road in Baltimore. And playing on the road in Baltimore is a difficult task in and of itself. In prime time, when the lights, when they bring out the all black uniforms and it's under the lights, that assignment gets 10 times harder. And then you give them prime time in Baltimore on a short week, it feels damn near impossible. Damn near impossible. I understand. Go out there, play the game, win the game, whatever. I totally get that. I understand it. I don't care if it's a Thursday night, Monday night. The expectation from me to my team, go out there. You know what you're going up against. Find a way to win the damn game. But it is getting to be a little ridiculous. If you're fair and objective about it, it's getting to be ridiculous. The Bengals got to sacrifice and go into the Lions' den for the third consecutive year in a row in a short week. And at one point in time in these 3 seasons, including the 2 previous and the 1 upcoming, not one time the NFL said, you know what, Ravens, you guys, let us see Lamar beat the Bengals defense like a drum in prime time. That's the thing I don't understand. They love to showcase the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, look at the bank, the Inner Harbor, blah, blah, blah. And then it's like, okay, well, Lamar does damage against the Bengals at home and on the road, yet. And I understand Baltimore is more of a. People in Cincinnati going to kill me, but damn it, I'm Baltimorean, local, born and raised playgrounds where I spend most of my days. I don't give a shit. I understand that it's a more cinematic or cinematographer friendlier city, I guess, from a television perspective. You'd rather go to spend a weekend in Baltimore, I guess, than a weekend in Cincinnati. The skyline with the Inner Harbor and the water. There's a little bit of a that's why they call us the Charm City. I understand that, but from a competitive standpoint, I'll even take 425. I'll even take 425 on a Sunday afternoon. But now one time, Bengals, Ravens in Cincinnati, it can't be on Sunday night or Monday Night Football, especially this year with the garbage that's on this year. Vikings and Cowboys on Monday night that week 15, and Dolphins and Steelers of all teams on the next day, that Monday night. I mean, you gotta be kidding me. Vikings and Cowboys, I don't like, but I know what the league's going to tell me. Cowboys, blah, 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 blah. Dolphins and Steelers, as it stands right now, Mason Rudolph and Tua Tagovailoa, with the Dolphins freezing their asses off in 40-degree temperatures sitting on the Allegheny River, is not my idea of thrilling NFL football in prime time the 1st of December, the weekend, the weekend concluding the Thanksgiving holiday. Well, that's not that weekend; it's week 13 or 14. But you get the idea. A weekend in December. I mean, come on. We know what we're going up against watching the Dolphins play a certain time of the year in the northern and Midwest and Northeast parts of the country. It's just what we're beating our heads up against the wall, people. But you can tell. Obviously, I'm filling time with random rants just popping in. I mean, it's not because, honest to God, looking at my show sheet, I'll have this show done literally in 20-25 minutes. So I'm trying to give you guys a little bit of what they call filler, if you will, in the broadcasting industry. But I mean, there's really not that much else to talk about. I mean, yesterday, you know what I did? Because outside of the Mets and the White Sox, there wasn't much on sports wise to watch yesterday afternoon. So I said, you know what, the hell with it. I'll get my iPad, lie down, at least attempt to go to sleep, take a nap, which I failed unsuccessfully. Pop on the iPad. By the way, how long did you all think it was going to take HBO to change their name from Max back to HBO Max? We said at the time when they dropped the HBO and just had it Max, a la Elon Musk changing the name of Twitter and calling it X. Everybody and their mother knew it was a dumb idea at the time. So now all of a sudden they're going to go right back to HBO Max where it should have stayed from the very beginning, but I digress. So I hopped on there. I said, you know what, I haven't watched The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air in a while. And I watched a few episodes of The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. Watched a few episodes of Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. By the way, you probably cannot find a television show in the last 30 years, by the way, that had as many A-list, high-profile, attractive women of a given decade as you will on that show. I mean, I'm talking everybody from Vanessa Williams to Robin Givens to Pam Grier to, I mean, just all my look. How in the hell they were able to get all of them throughout the entire 6 seasons of that show? It's like, and I wouldn't necessarily call myself a television connoisseur, but I've seen a decent amount of TV shows in my life. Sitcoms, whether it be Different Strokes, Good Times, Full House, The Cosby Show, A Different World, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, then the Office, The Office, The Sopranos, The Wire, The Law and Order, Chicago. I mean, I think I've seen a decent amount of TV shows in my life. The Game, I've seen it. The Bernie Mac show. I cannot. It's just every single one, every one after the other, and then the ironic thing is that every Stacey Dash. I mean, it's the ironic thing is that they always somehow end up with Will. That's the crazy thing. And Will is, I mean, no older than, I mean, by the end of the show, he's what, about 22, 23, 24 years of age. So, like, early on in the show, he's no older than 21 years of age. And it's like he ends up with every even Pam Grier, who's like in her 40s at the time. And it's like, how in the hell, like you watch a TV show, it's like this is, I mean, the suspension of disbelief is insane. Because no way in hell, realistically speaking, what are the odds that a 19 to 20 year old young college student who's living with his pregnant auntie, takes his auntie to a pregnancy birth delivery preparatory class, and runs into, at the time, one of the most attractive and more high profile women on the planet, who also happens to be pregnant, who also baby daddy, husband, whatever, out of sight, out of mind, and then casually asks him out on a date at the end. I mean, it's just a little bit cartoony good show. Don't get me wrong, but Fresh Prince of Bel-Air a little too cartoony for my taste in terms of the dynamics between the main protagonist and the high profile love interest that would be written into the show. A Different World, I think, takes a kick as the better 90s sitcom, in my humble opinion. And don't ask me if I've seen Friends. I wouldn't watch that show if you put it in my backyard. I would absolutely draw the blinds. Also, you know what I gotta watch too? I gotta watch the Mission Impossible movies. I like Tom Cruise for all of his goofiness and his zaniness with the Scientology and everything. That guy, in terms of an entertainer and an actor, that guy has my absolute utmost respect. I mean, he's in his early 60s, still doing his own jaw-dropping stunts. Doesn't have a stunt man. The guy has no problem going underwater, jumping out of planes, riding bicycles and motorcycles off a canyon. So I say all that because I guess the final movie of the Mission Impossible franchise, which he's been at since 1996 for the better part of the last damn near 30 years. The final movie, The Final Reckoning, just came out. And I wouldn't say a huge, but I am a decent Tom Cruise fan. I liked Risky Business. I liked, A Few Good Men. He was excellent in Jerry Maguire. So I like Tom. I haven't seen him in Jack Reacher. But I've seen obviously the aforementioned movies, and he's been excellent. And I've liked every single one that I've seen from Tom. So, and one of his, one of his major movie franchise cash cows and Mission Impossible movie franchise that my parents my brother, for whatever the reason, doesn't like him, and he's the movie buff of the family. But my parents absolutely adore his Mission Impossible franchise. And I obviously, if you're watching TV or on social media, how can you not know that movie just came out over the weekend? And I did not see any of the previous 7. It's going to be difficult because I go to Ocean City next weekend for Ocean City, Maryland, for the Chesapeake AP Broadcasters Awards banquet, weekend and everything else. So probably won't have. So that weekend is problematic. This weekend, that Saturday, I work, and that afternoon I'm going to the Orioles game. Believe it or not, with my middle school basketball coach that afternoon. So I'm going from work right to the game. So I don't know when I'm gonna have to. I would like to see, because that's the type of movie you got to see in the theater, not necessarily on streaming, with your iPad in front of you. But there's 7 movies I gotta watch and catch up on in order for the 8th and the final one to make sense to me. So I'm not asking 19 trillion questions and a bunch of stuff is flying over my head left and right. But sometime, I hope it's so popular, because I think they extended or they re-released Sinners in theaters right now, if I'm not mistaken. So hopefully this movie becomes big enough and popular enough where Tom, maybe in about 2-3 weeks time, does it again. So then when it's just one, championship basketball series to worry about instead of the 2, when once the NBA Finals starts, I can watch the Mission Impossible movies during the off nights of the NBA Finals, and then eventually have enough time on my hands where I get through all 7. All 7 previous of them are available on Hulu, by the way, so I can watch all the 7 and then get an opportunity to watch Mission Impossible in theaters. Because say what you want about Tom Cruise, but that guy, he cares. He cares. A lot of celebrities, especially nowadays, a lot of actors today, they'll slap their name on any piece of shit just so they can collect the bag. You get the feeling that Tom Cruise cares about the art that's attached to his name, and he takes great pride in what he does. And if somebody, whether they be now I can't stand the theater, but a stage actor, my forte, a television or movie actor, a musical artist, an athlete, whatever, they take pride in what they do. If they showcase and they tell, not just verbally, but through the actions, that they care about what they do, then I, as a consumer, have to, take that into account and make sure that if I like what you do and I like your work, I got to go out there and make the effort to show my support in any way that I possibly can. By the way, shout out Janet Jackson. Got I didn't even know it was on last night. I saw it through social media. I didn't watch because of the T-Wolves and the Thunder series or the Thunder game last night, but she got the American Music Awards Icon Award for her contributions to society through music. And it's good, because especially in the music industry, and unfortunately, at least I know in the Black music industry or community, I should say, for those that aren't the R. Kellys and the Diddy's of the world, we wait too long and we don't give a person their flowers while they're alive to receive it and enjoy it and appreciate them. So whether it's Janet Jackson or Stevie Wonder, I mean, because you think about it, there's really not that much or should older to old musical artists within my skin folk that are legends, number one, and B, that are here to take their flowers and to take their recognition while they're with us. And I hate to say that because Janet Jackson, she's the same age as my mother. She's 59, not 99. But considering that Prince died in his 50s, Michael Jackson died in his 50s. There's a laundry list of musical artists from the 80s through the 90s and even some in early 2000s. I mean, hell, Nate Dogg is no longer with us. So there's such a laundry list of great musical talents that passed, especially in their 50s within the Black community, that aren't here to still receive their flowers and their admiration for their contributions to society. So it's nice to see Janet, 59 years old, still dance like she's in her 20s and her 30s, get her much needed flowers and credit and praise for her contribution. So that was a nice sight to see last night. And happy birthday, 50th to the great Andre 3000, he of Outcast. So I think that just about covers it. So what are we? About 20, 27, about 28 minutes into the show, and we've yet to discuss some sports, so let's jump right into it. Well, let's start with the West, just to get it out the way. It was a game that was last night. The Minnesota Timberwolves are finished. That's just all there's to it. The T-Wolves, they're cooked. Because you cannot, and this is where I don't want to hear. Now, I understand there's still some time. It's not end all be all for his career and what he can accomplish, obviously, at the NBA level. But I'm sorry, we got to put to bed the face of the NBA conversations and him being some not all time, but a top five, great player in the NBA. We got to put that to bed with Anthony Edwards. I'm sorry. When you get absolutely a magnificent performance from your bench, I mean, they got you take a look at their bench. They got 22, 23. That's 40. What's that? That's 44 plus 11. 44 plus 11. That's 50. You got 55 points from your bench. The Minnesota Timberwolves, the remainder of that's not, well, actually, scratch 60 because Terrence Shannon Jr. got 9 off the bench in his 8 minutes of action. So you get 60 points coming off the bench in an NBA playoff game at home against a 1 seed, no less, that kicked your ass in the first seed. You're not getting 60 points off the bench again in this series. Like, I want to know. I want to know, and I want to make it clear. I want to make it crystal clear to the Minnesota Timberwolves and to Anthony Edwards. You're not getting another 60-point performance from your bench the rest of this series. You scored 126 points offensively. 126 points. You shot 43% from 3 and 51% from the field for the game. You put on as a team, you put on an offensive masterclass for the most part. Your bench was magnificent. You're not getting 60 points. Even if you somehow win this series in 7 games, you are not getting 60 points from your bench the remainder of this series. And for Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle to put together 2 clunkers where they were a combined 6 for 20 from the field and 1 of 10 from 3 is absolutely combined between the 2 of them, they put up 21 points. That is absolutely at home in a game you had to have to give OKC something to think about on the flight back west for Game 5. And they put up a combined 21 points between the 2 of them. And again, one more time, shot 1 of 10 from 3 and 6 of 20 from the field between the two of them. That is absolutely positively unacceptable. And Anthony Edwards, only for all of his quote unquote greatness and how Jordan-esque he looks with his moves and how he drives to the basket and his footwork and he cuts and all of the pomp and circumstance that goes into the praise that Anthony Edwards gets, and he only took 2 shots in the first half. He only in a home playoff game where they have an opportunity to tie the series up, coming off of a monster blowout victory in Game 3 on Saturday night, and he only takes 2 shots in the first half. That's unacceptable basketball. I'm more so disappointed in Anthony Edwards than anything else. We know, and any Knicks fan knows what you get from Julius Randle sometimes. Even in a situation on a team where he is not leaned on as the 1A scorer on his team, he can find a way to let you down come playoff time. Again, Knicks fans were screaming from the rafters for the Knicks to trade this man when they got bounced by Miami I was either the first or the second round, doesn't matter, when the Knicks got bounced by Miami in the playoffs 2 years ago. We're screaming and yelling from the rooftops for Leon Rose and the Knicks to trade this man when he was an absolute no-show and at times a double agent in that series against the Heat 2 years ago. So we know what we're getting with Julius Randle. We know what doesn't make it any more acceptable, but we know what we're getting from Julius Randle. You've seen him play in New York. You know what you're getting out of him. Eventually, he's going to put up one of 7 clunkers where he can't buy a basket. And he's turning over the basketball hand over fist. Had 5 total turnovers for the night. But you get what you get with Julius Randle. You take the good with the bad. You eat the meat. You spit out and toss away the bone. But Anthony Edwards, you talk about, and then he had the nerve to sit up here and dispute and say otherwise after the game that that there was basically nothing wrong with how he played. Anthony, pull your head out of your ass, my man. Wake up, snap back to reality. Pull your head out of your ass. You weren't just bad. You were downright disgusting last night. You were disgusting. It was absolute. I'm looking for the quote right now. What he said after the game, because you want to talk about the epitome of arrogance and being tone deaf. I could not believe what his thoughts were after the game. I'm gonna find a quote here in a minute. But it's enough of Anthony Edwards' face of the league. I've heard enough of this. I've heard enough of that. I've heard enough of that idea, whether it's something that he has played a part into because of taking the Wolves to the conference finals last year, or it's a media-driven thing. I've heard enough. Volume shooter. He only took 2 shots in the first half. No aggression, no heart, no life, no fight, no dog in him whatsoever. And that's it. Anybody can go crazy in a 30 to 40 point blowout. Anybody can go crazy when you're kicking ass and taking names and you're beating up on a team up by 40 points. Shooting 70% from the field and 62% from 3. Anybody can shoot the lights out when everything's going great. But what happens when, for the first time in this series, you're playing a back and forth white knuckler, and the opposition gets off the deck and shows great fervor after getting their asses kicked in Game 3? What are you going to do when the op hits back? What are you going to do when the op hits back? Anthony Edwards, his answer, only taking 2 shots in the first half. That when the Timberwolves are asking themselves come Thursday morning why they got their hefty bags in the hand and various shoe boxes to pack their shoes in, when they're cleaning out their locker Thursday morning for the offseason. When that moment hits them at 10 o'clock Thursday morning, because they don't have a chance in hell to win Game 5 in OKC. I'm going to just tell you that right now, tomorrow night. They do not have a chance in hell of winning that basketball game. When they're back in Minneapolis with them hefty bags in hand, they can turn to number 5 and they can thank him. They can thank him because that clunker, along with Julius Randle's, those two brothers clunkers in that Game 4 is exactly why the Timberwolves season, as we sit right now on Tuesday, May the 20th, those two guys and their clunkers are the primary leading reasons why the Minnesota Timberwolves season is finished. That's why. I understand it's a team sport, and they aren't from the big picture perspective the only two to blame for losing this series. Rudy Gobert was awful early on in this series, and has just looked like like a bum, for lack of a better word, at times, like we saw against Dallas last year. But if you want a quote unquote scapegoat or the two quote unquote primary suspects, you point to Edwards and you point to Randle, because the Thunder cannot have an opportunity to win that game on the road after getting their asses kicked in Game 3 when the Wolves got 60 points coming off the bench, shot the lights out of the building, and gave the Thunder their first white knuckler game since when? It's been 2 weeks, give or take, this series against Denver a few weeks ago. I mean, the Thunder have not played a nip and tuck, edge of your seat, full 4-quarter basketball game in a long, long, long time. And they were ripened to get picked off, have the series tied at 2 apiece, giving that young team something to think about when I'm playing right back to OKC. And Anthony Edwards, and to a lesser extent, Julius Randle, let them off the hook. And that cannot happen. We know what we're getting with Randle, granted, but when you're seeing, and this is another reason why Edwards takes more so of the blame than Randle, because when you see Randle's not having a good game, and albeit your bench is doing their job, getting 60 points coming off the bench, you as the alpha dog and the best player on your team, again, Mr. New Face of the NBA, the next Michael Jordan, Michael Jordan 2.0, you have to put your team on your back and say, I got to step up. I got to do better. I can't be passive and let these guys dump over 120-something points and have me just sit idly by taking 2 shots in the first half, and we're going to sit back and just hope, wish, and pray that things go in our favor. We're going to win this basketball game. We'll see you in Game 5 with the series tied at 2-2. No, the all-time great, the legendary player rises up, gets aggressive, takes over the game, and implants their will feverishly in the process on that aforementioned said game. And Anthony Edwards did not do that. He was very passive. He was not aggressive at all. The shots he did take, he was very spotty. 5 of 13, was awful from 3. Not good. T-Wolves are in trouble. I think, quite frankly, they're done. I think they're done. But if you are Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle, you need to be embarrassed and ashamed of your performance last night. Your bench gives you that much of a valiant effort, and your defense doesn't play well from start to finish, but plays well enough to keep you in the game so you're not in a 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 20, 30-something hole, and you turn around and you produce that slop, that garbage, in a Game 4 you absolutely had to have. That's unacceptable, inexcusable, playoff losing, Cancun-worthy type of basketball. There's just no other way around it. And by the way, for the Anthony Edwards fan club out there, and for Ant-Man himself personally, this is now the second straight conference finals that you've dragged your team towards, and you've been outplayed by the opposing team's best player. You got taken to the back of the woodshed by Luka, and SGA has outplayed Ant-Man even with his foul baiting and him getting to the free throw line handle with this. He has outplayed Anthony Edwards in literal circles in this series. Great players don't allow that to happen. And when they get not when they make it to the conference finals in back-to-back years. No. One time, okay, fine. Second time, they give me a little better than what I've seen from Anthony, which has not been a lot to be proud of, in my humble opinion. And another thing that doesn't bode well in Anthony Edwards' favor either, in terms of his overall performance from last night, he's had a very pedestrian spring. Very pedestrian spring this year. Had a few highs, but he has not had the elite all-world postseason that SGA has had, that Jalen Brunson has had, that Tyrese Halliburton has had. He has played a nice sum of games where he's left a lot to be desired through 48 minutes. And that's not going to cut it this season or in the following seasons for he and the Timberwolves either. He's got to be better than that. Got to be better, must be better, especially in Game 5 to somehow sway force of Game 6, or else we'll be sitting here come Friday playing taps for the 2025 Minnesota Timberwolves. Ant-Man's quote, found it. It was, "I didn't get enough shots to say I struggled. They just had a good game plan, making us get off the ball, especially for me. They were super in the gaps. I made the right play all night." See, I understand what he means when he says that, but when you say I didn't get enough shots to say I struggled, because of the caliber player that you are, and knowing that you took and had a nice plethora amount of shot opportunities in Game 3 the other night, kind of sort of implies that you did struggle because you didn't make enough shots. If you got to take a decent amount of shots in order for you to make a nice, decent amount of shots. And when you're seeing that you're getting essentially nothing from Julius Randle, he's got 5 turnovers on the night, you can't. I'm not saying you got to shoot, 30 times, but you got to give me more. How many shots did he take? Let me pull it up one more time. You got to give me more than 13 shots. Could you give me 20? Could you give me 18 to 21 shots, which essentially is about 5 to 8 more that you could have taken. You couldn't have given me. I mean, Nickeil Alexander-Walker took more shots than you, and he played 29 minutes coming off the bench. You played a whole nother 10, 11 minutes more than he did, and you only took 30. I mean, you played 41 minutes. It's hard for me to take that alibi. I understand what he means, but it's still that alibi after the game. It's still no excuse. Still, and the thing I also want to understand, and it doesn't really mean anything. And the thing I want to understand too, and it doesn't really mean anything in the big picture, because once they got to that fouling up there, and there's been some discourse on Twitter, basically to I don't want to say outlaw, but that there is a aesthetically eyesore or blind spot within the game, that they have that rule where if you are down 3, you can automatically foul once you're in the bonus, to send the team to the free throw line so they don't have an opportunity to tie the game with a 3-point shot. I'm kind of 50-50 on that. I do agree with the fact that it makes for very uninspiring, unentertaining basketball, because that was the first entertaining back and forth game we've gotten between these two teams in this series, and the final 30 seconds, give or take, a little less than about 20 seconds of that game was completely unwatchable because it turned into a free throw shooting contest for in real time, like the final 20 minutes of that game. And it does, I understand that the league is in the quote unquote entertainment business. And this is why I'll see the other side of the coin too, because it is, professional sports at the end of the day. They're there to win. They're there to win a game. They're there to win an NBA championship. We watch it as entertainment, but it's still underneath the umbrella of professional competition. And some methods and some forms of strategy in which you are trying to go out there and win within the game of sports, it doesn't make for entertaining sport. It doesn't. Whether it be, I'm glad they did it because it got so ridiculous. But the shift in Major League Baseball, the tush push, the debate that's been going on with that in the NFL. It's not depending on who you are, what type of football fan are you? What kind of fan are you? Depending on what type of football fan are you. Some of you find the play entertaining and compelling. Others find it just a boring, 10 seconds waste of time. Whatever side of the fence you sit on, it still more so has to do with execution and strategy and what's the best method to gain a first down on a fourth and inches or fourth and one, more so than it is in keeping the viewing audience in the stadium, or in this case in the arena, watching on television, entertained for every single second of a 48-minute regulation basketball game. So I get it. There still needs to be that sort of that unattractive strategical element of professional sports in general, that you basically don't compromise the integrity of the sport. Not, you know what I mean by integrity. I mean, in the form and in the nature in which the sport was created. You don't want to bastardize that because, God forbid, you have a small little finite sequence of a given game that isn't exactly the most entertaining style of basketball to watch. So I understand and I get both sides of that argument, and it is, from a fan's perspective, very dull, very boring, very mundane, very just monotonous and tiresome to watch. I understand that, but hey, don't put yourself in a situation where you are down three and you have to basically avoid if you stay out of foul trouble collectively as a team, you won't be in the bonus. And then also on the flip side, if you put yourself in a situation where you play the first 47 minutes and 50 seconds of a given game, or 40 or 35, if you put yourself in a situation where you don't need a three late in the fourth quarter, they basically don't have to play the automatic foul game. Now, you guys know me because it's been a theme throughout the NBA playoffs. I cannot stand that. I don't like that strategy. I'd rather take my chances and play defense rather than take little time off the clock, because kind of sort of at the end of the day, the team is racing against the clock, not necessarily whether or not they can capitalize on the free throws. I understand you take the opportunity away for a potential 4-point play if the three is made and they get fouled on the end. I understand the nature of it, but myself personally, I do not like that strategy. Been on record as saying it back earlier in the playoffs, and I will not waver here this afternoon. I don't like that strategy, but be that as it may, I see both sides of the coin with the fouling up three argument, which I saw all over the place on Twitter today. Although I got a question for the league office. Somebody has to explain to me how in the hell, what was it, like 2/10 or 3/10 of a second left? How in the world did they not review the time? How much time was left before the clock expired at the end of the fourth quarter? How in the world did they not check and see and clearly see that by the time the ball was caught by the fans standing courtside, there was a sixth of a second left on the clock at the end of the fourth quarter? And instead, it was originally 0.1, and then they put like 2 or 3/10 of a second left. Man, it should have been 6/10 of a second left with a catch and shoot, not an inbound alley oop like we saw a la Clippers and Suns with DeAndre Ayton circa the Western Conference Finals of 2021. I I understand it doesn't mean anything. It didn't determine who won or who lost that game last night. But I was scratching my head. I was like, so they're not going to review and basically put some needed time back on. I mean, that's the difference between a catch and shoot and a catch in the alley oop, which is essentially Hail Mary on a basketball court, except you got to essentially semi catch the ball and either tip it or dunk it in. I made no sense to me. Made absolutely no sense to me whatsoever why they decided to essentially roll with 2 or 3 tenths of a second left and not go back and review it as they should have and put 6 tenths of a second. I'm like, did you guys watch the same game I watched? I don't understand. Why not? Why isn't there more time left or being put, I should say, back on this clock? It made absolutely no sense to me at all. Getting to the Eastern Conference Finals. The Knicks, you want to talk about a weird basketball team, man. As much as they frustrate the living hell out of you, and this comes from somebody that's not a lifelong diehard Knicks fan, as much as they frustrate the hell out of you, they make you want to pull your hair out. You're yelling and cussing and screaming at the TV. They make you shake your head. They make you, hands to the forehead, angry tweet, whole 9 yards. They are a gritty, gutty, mentally tough basketball team. When the chips are pushing to the middle of the table and they get into a situation where it's fight or flight, you fall, you lose, and you will die. They always, 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 always find a way to get off the deck, as we saw on Sunday night. And give Coach Tom Thibodeau credit. He did not exactly extinguish himself on Friday night from just the awful lineups he put together, allowing Campaign to get time to start the fourth quarter, which was just flagrant coaching malpractice. It was absolutely disgusting for the Knicks on Friday night. Could not get the job done. Opening up the fourth quarter with Payne and then playing Karl-Anthony Towns only 28 minutes is just, that's as unserious of a coaching strategy in a conference final you can get. And again, the whoever offense with Jalen Brunson, while he's getting double teamed, feet outside of the arc. It's just, and not one time do we call timeout, reset, regroup, and say, okay, they're not letting Jalen Brunson win them this game. We gotta come up with something different. And he took the lessons from that loss, went back to the drawing board, and did a phenomenal job in game number 4 on Sunday night. From bringing in, and I shouldn't say bring in. Well, I guess you could say bringing in Jalen Brunson in the final 2 minutes of the fourth quarter Sunday night. That was a positive, and I think if all goes well tonight, he should replicate that. And I think this should be a thing for as long as the Knicks play going forward. Is that the thing with Brunson, because he's so clutch and has been so great and has been so spectacular form this spring, that the Knicks have, at times you see it where they fall into I don't know whether it's on purpose or psychologically, where it's a fourth quarter of a tight game, especially late with under 3 minutes to go. And it's like, okay, well, Jalen Brunson's the best player on the team. He's the clutch player of the year. He's been phenomenal in the postseason. All 4 players on the floor, get the hell out the way, step back, put your hands up, let Jalen Brunson take over, and it's basically 1-on-5, and Jalen Brunson, at least in this series, has been shut down every single time the Knicks have gone to that strategy, and it's come back to bite them in the ass, where the other 4 players on the floor kind of step away, walk away, give Jalen Brunson it's almost like it's like an ensemble cast in a Broadway play. And when it comes time for the lead to basically have their big moment, whether it's a monologue on stage or if it's a musical, the great big musical number, and you're watching and there's like a dozen people on stage, and then magically 11 of them snap out of thin air, and it's just the one premier star on stage under the spotlight, and there's nobody left. It's all that's how you feel a little bit watching the Knicks play with Brunson late in these fourth quarters, where it's like, okay, it's Jalen Brunson time. Everybody get the hell out of the way, get off the floor, and it's Jalen Brunson's time to shine, and it's 1v5, and it doesn't work out. And bringing him out of the game and having him sit a good. Now I understand, and that's where him getting himself in foul trouble turned out to be a blessing in disguise, because he got off the floor and he forced the Knicks to play team-oriented basketball from an offensive perspective. And we all know that Brunson is the best Knick on the floor. Arguably, he's the best player on the floor in this series, and we know how clutch and how great he is. But you can't keep going back to the watering hole expecting water to be there when you keep on taking and you pour nothing back into it. Eventually, you're going to go there one too many times, you're going to look, and the damn thing is going to be bone dry down at the bottom. So it's good for the Knicks for them to play team-oriented basketball offensively, where they spread the wealth around, they spread the offense out, everybody's touching the ball, and they're letting Karl-Anthony Towns go to town, no pun intended. And we sit there, you watch it, and lo and behold, final 2 minutes, Brunson's fresh. You clock him back in for him when it comes time for him to close. But they gotta, if tonight's game positions itself where they can be in a situation where they can do that again, they got to replicate that as many times as possible for the remainder of their playoff run until it doesn't work anymore. Because that's what the Knicks need. They need a fresher Brunson. You saw very worn down. It's like he left everything out there on the floor, especially late in that overtime in game one. It felt like he had nothing physically left to give. He took that, what was supposed to be a game-winning three, and he airballed it because he couldn't get his legs underneath him. He was shot for the night. They need a rested, fresher Brunson and an offense where everybody is getting involved, and it's not and they're spread apart evenly on the floor. Ball movements are flowing. And it's not the Jalen Brunson show 1v5 and everybody just standing there in isolation watching him, trying to work down one Pacers defender after the next once he crosses half court on the inbounds dribble. Because the way that it went through the first two games and then the first half of game number one working. It wasn't working. Now, give the New York Knicks tremendous credit for showing great resolve coming back. And, the low key, one of the big time moments in that game was that run that they went on there late in the second quarter, heading into the halftime locker room where they cut the Pacers lead down to 13. You get the lead down to 13, as you heard Kenny the Jet Smith say on TNT on Sunday night. Once you can cut a 15 to a 20-something point lead down to 13, where basically will you make it essentially 3, 6, 9, 12. Once you can get it to 5 threes or less in terms of how many threes it would require you to tie the game, once you get into that territory, that 13 to 15 point range from being down previously 20 or more, you're doing the right thing. You're doing the right thing. And they clutched up in the fourth quarter, especially Karl-Anthony Towns, who, let's be honest, was a complete no-show through the first 3 quarters of this game. I mean, and take a look at what he's done in the fourth quarter last 2 games. In game number 2, 2 points, 5 minutes, only took 1 shot, 0 rebounds. Game 3 on Sunday night, 20 points, 6 and 9 from the field, 3 or 4 from 3, 8 rebounds, the highest scoring fourth quarter of his playoff career. And again, his first 3 quarters, he was an absolute despicable, disgusting no-show. And I mean no-show for the first 3 quarters. He couldn't, from playing volleyball underneath the basket. I understand why they do that. The good polished, experienced NBA big, knows how to basically tap the basketball into various directions underneath the basket so it goes from out of the net to slap into the arms of someone hopefully wearing the same. So I understand the strategy and the how and the why, but it gets to a point where you do it so many times where it does more harm than good. You got to go back to the old school, old fashioned get up, jump, both hands, yank the ball out of thin air, a la Josh Hart, who was absolutely magnificent in the fourth quarter, which I get to in a minute. You got to get back to that. You got to get back to that because Karl-Anthony Towns was getting absolutely bodied and humiliated in the paint with the lack of rebounding through the first 3 quarters of that game, especially in the first quarter and the second. He was atrocious. Couldn't rebound for anything. I tweeted out, I say it here. He's been in the league too damn long, too damn talented to be at times as aloof, undisciplined, and clueless on the basketball court as which he can be, as showcased by him getting in such egregious foul trouble that literally could have been avoided if he just had his head on straight and just played polished, disciplined playoff basketball instead of wandering and running up and down the court left and right like a fish out of water. Shuffling and gliding down the court like a ballet dancer, and he got himself with one of those fouls that he interrupted the path of the dribbling pacer coming down the floor. Stuff like he's been in the league too damn long to get called for such easily avoidable fouls as we saw on Sunday night. But give him credit. Fourth quarter, flipped the switch, and absolutely put his team on his back. Put him on his back. And there's another frustrating thing about Cat in his game. When he's at his best is when he is playing as close to a traditional big as humanly possible, where he gets the ball in the open floor, running downhill, over 7 feet tall, big ass body mass for a big man. Everyone get the hell out the way because this train is coming down the tracks and it's not a damn thing you can do to stop it. When he plays like the traditional big man that occasionally picks and chooses the spots from 3, a la Nikola Jokic, when he's at his peak, Cat, he's a bad man. But it's when it's like, you know what they ought to start calling him? They ought to start calling him Heathcliff. The cat cartoon that carried himself like a dog. That was the affectionate nickname that the 90s Bills gave quarterback Jim Kelly, who, carried himself, and whenever the play would break down or whatever, he would carry himself and run with the ball in his hand and run up and down the field like he was a running back or a linebacker. And the great Buffalo Bill linebacker Darryl Talley gave him the nickname Heathcliff, the cat that thinks and acts and carries himself as if he's a dog. Well, they need to give that nickname to Karl-Anthony Towns because he's a big man that carries himself like he's a 6'2", 6'3" guard a la Jalen Brunson with how he moves up and down the court, and especially with the basketball in his hand with as many threes as he takes in a given game. But when he is disciplined, focused, and locked in and plays his height and plays to the advantage of his size, not to his disadvantage, Karl-Anthony Towns is a bad mamma jamma. He with the basketball in his hands offensively. He's just got to get more focus, lock up, lock in, more discipline, get the hell away from the egregious foul trouble he finds himself in, and he's gonna be all right. Throwing Thibodeau, not being so damn stubborn and reluctant to flipping up the starting lineup, climbing and diving deeper into his bench. And I think the Knicks got a good shot to head back to MSG with this series tied at 2 games apiece. And they're due to win a game at home in this series too. They're due to now that's barring if they win tonight. I think if they win tonight, I think this is how the series goes if the Knicks win tonight. I think if the Knicks win tonight, they win game. If the Knicks win tonight, they win game 5. They lose game 6 in Indiana, and then they're headed back home to a game 7 next Monday night. I don't see the Pacers losing 4 consecutive games in a row to end their season. They're going to get a third win somehow. Now, is it tonight or game 6 remains to be seen, or game 5, because the Knicks could also win tonight to tie the series, come back to MSG, kick ass yet again in that building, win game 5, and then come back home to Indiana to celebrate to celebrate a conference championship in game 6. But like I said, now I did say that the difference between whether or not this series is a quick one or goes 7 is all predicated on the Knicks winning game 2. Well, I guess you can basically take that and insert it into today's show, because I think that implies to this game tonight. I think if the Knicks win tonight, tie the series up at 2-2 apiece, strap in, because you're going to get a game. Obviously, a game 5 is guaranteed, but you're going to get a game 6 and you're going to get a game 7. This series, we're going to get a game 7, I should say, because if it's 2-2, obviously it's going to be a game 6. But you get what I'm trying to say. If the Knicks win tonight, I think you can write down game 7 coming up the 2nd of the month on next Monday, 6 days from now. But I think if the Pacers win tonight, they could be celebrating on the MSG floor come Thursday night. Could be. But who knows? But Thibodeau's got to bring that level of desperation to his lineups, to his rotations during the game. He's got to bring that to game 4 here tonight. And when Indiana went on that magnificent run in the second quarter, he cannot wait as long as humanly possible, as he did, to call a timeout to get his team's ass in gear. That's the thing he can't duplicate from game to game heading into tonight. He can't duplicate that. Can't. They get out to a 7, 8, 9-0 run, and you feel that the floodgates are damn near about to break open at the seams. You gotta put a stop to it right then and there. Don't wait till it becomes 12-0, 13, 14, 16, 18-2. No, I like the Knicks' chances tonight. Stay out of foul trouble, Brunson and Cat, and I think they're gonna be all right. Not to mention Neesmith with the ankle injury is also very, 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 very much a killer for the Pacers going forward. So take that into account headed into game number 4 tonight as well. Switching gears to the National Football League quickly. Jim Irsay, who passed away last Wednesday at the age of 65, born in 1959. Owner of the Indianapolis Colts, the successor and the son to his father, Robert Irsay, who acquired the team in an ownership swap between them and the Rosenblums back in the day when the Colts were here in Baltimore. Birthday June 13th, just a few weeks away. Born in Lincolnwood, Illinois. Attended high school at Loyola Academy, suburb of Chicago. Graduated with a degree in '82 in broadcast journalism. Ironically enough, was a linebacker for the SMU Mustangs as a walk-on. Also boxed, played golf, was a avid weightlifter. Took control of the team in 1997 as owner and chairman, was VP GM in the 80s when the team moved to Indianapolis from Baltimore. He was on their administrative staff, college scouting, breaking down the film, the little small stuff while the team was in Baltimore. I can't wait till there's a documentary of 30 for 30 or like a night with an HBO, Netflix, or 30 for 30 ESPN. There's going to be a documentary done on him and I think it's quite warranted because he's a very you can't put Jim Irsay in a box. I put it to you that way. Obviously, from the work that he did with the, owning the Colts, they played in They played in two Super Bowls, '06, 2009, both with Peyton Manning. Who can forget the owner of the Colts when they were one of the more premier franchises in the National Football League in the 2000s with Peyton Manning? Obviously, we know recently, with Andrew Luck walking out on him during that training camp of 2019, that August. I'm playing with a stress ball, so I apologize. But obviously, that, and he took a lot of criticism, and rightfully so, and I actually was one of those that took part in it when he decided to keep Chris Ballard around as GM when the Colts, obviously that long stretch of period of time where they had not won the division since Ballard got there as GM in 2017, and they were a franchise that really was kind of spinning their wheels, if you were, just doing enough just to get by, and in some cases just bottoming out and just being just flat out awful in the aftermath of Andrew Luck retiring on him during training camp of that year. And he was the boss in charge of a lot of all that. But, you take a look, and you can't say, well, the guy, wasn't a complete, failure. I mean, did win a Super Bowl championship as owner. They were one of the more successful teams in the National Football League from the time Peyton Manning got there, even through the earlier years of Andrew Luck, winning them division title. I think that was 2013, I believe it was, that year. They made the playoffs those 3 consecutive years, Luck's first 3-4 years in the league. 2012, they made the playoffs his rookie year. 2000, they lost to the Ravens in the wild card round. 2013, they had that great comeback against Kansas City. 2014, they lost to 2014. They made it to the AFC Championship game. 2015, they lost to Denver in the divisional round that year. So, I mean, very successful owner by and by in terms of how his team did under his leadership. We know he wasn't perfect. Obviously struggled with alcoholism, well documented drug addict. Not that defines him, but obviously, not breaking news to not breaking news to anybody. Struggled with opioids, oxycodone, hydrocodone. Was arrested for driving under the influence on multiple occasions. He was sentenced to a year probation in 2014 after pleading guilty for operating while intoxicated. He had the quote on Real Sports in 2023 had been arrested and been prejudiced against because he was a rich white billionaire, which didn't go over well, rightfully so. Not to mention the tweet calling out Stephen A. Smith and Molly on First Take, which obviously did not go over well, and for good reason. Obviously known as a big music junkie with the band he put together, collecting the guitars, the huge fan of rock and roll that he was, with the different guitars of whether it be Lennon, McCartney, Elvis, Prince, Bob Dylan, Ringo Starr, you name it. But then, for all of that, and then he got the stuff about him that was very endearing, and qualities of qualities of him during his moments, him being a good person. Obviously was stood by and by, hand in hand, arm in arm with Chuck Pagano when he came down with leukemia. Was an excellent man of leadership in terms of raising money for him and just bringing about awareness to the disease. I never will forget that when he was sick and had to miss time during the middle of that 2012 season with leukemia. So he was a great humanitarian and stood by and by, was a great boss when his coach fell victim to that illness that, praise be to God, he was able to survive. around the turn of this current decade in the 2020s. He became a staunch advocate for speaking out against the stigmas regarding mental health and doing his best to raise about awareness with mental health disorders and everything else. The Kicking the Stigma initiative and everything else that he and the Indianapolis Colts have done, a phenomenal job with that. And then obviously within the football realm, it goes without saying he was one of the focal points within the NFL owners' constituency that got the ball rolling on kicking Dan Snyder the hell out of the good old boys club. And when Dan, he said, quote, October 2022, that there is merit to remove Daniel Snyder as the owner of the Washington Commanders, called for him to sell the team, and then shortly thereafter, he was gone. So he deserves absolutely tremendous credit for that. And in 2009, he was vocal about preventing an ownership group that, including Rush Limbaugh, of purchasing the St. Louis Rams, saying, quote, I myself couldn't even consider voting for him at a league owners meeting when there are comments that have been made that are inappropriate, incendiary, and insensitive. Our words do damage, and it's something we don't need, referring to when Rush Limbaugh made that racist comment about Donovan McNabb back in 2003 when he was at the time a commentator on ESPN back in the day. So you take the good with the bad with Jim Irsay. Was he a perfect human by any set of the circumstances? Absolutely not. Did he did things and say things that made you cringe, that frustrated the hell out of you, that straight up angered you? Absolutely. But at the same time, he wasn't, a toxinous, villainous POS through and through. He made sure that piece of shit Russell Limbaugh wasn't in charge of owning an NFL franchise. Number one, he obviously did good, like I said, with Chuck Pagano. He's he was a complicated, complex human being. He's a guy that you couldn't say necessarily, depending on who you were and what your relationship was. He was embraceable at some times and unembraceable at other times. If you were in his inner circle, you loved the hell out of him. If you hated him, you hated him. And if you were kind of lukewarm and different towards him, you liked and despised Jim Irsay, depending on which side of the bed that he woke up on. But he's got a very, for a guy that was a quote unquote trust fund baby that inherited an NFL franchise. Not only did he make the most out of having that job and that responsibility, but he also lived as much of an interesting and intriguing life as one that inherits a multi-billion-dollar American professional sports franchise could have. I put it to you this way: whose documentary of their life would you quicker either watch or read about? Jim Irsay's or Hal Stein? I mean, wasn't a perfect figure, had his flaws, had his issues, but there was a lot of good. There was a lot of good in Jim Irsay, and bless his heart, he did try his damnedest to beat the alcohol and drug addiction problems which plagued him and probably contributed to his untimely passing at the age of 65. And the alcoholism, especially because it goes back to his grandfather, Robert Irsay, who was a drunk himself. Also was a scathing alcoholic who, lied and, I'll leave Robert Irsay, but the late Jim Irsay passed away at the age of 65. And also, for what it is worth, in the last few years, he did go out of his way to basically take he's got daughters, no sons, to take his daughters under his wing and to show him the ins and outs of essentially the family business. And they will be controlling owner and boss and CEO and everything else of the Indianapolis Colts from now until whenever, obviously, with his passing. Colts came out with a introduction of the patch that they're going to wear this upcoming season in 2025. You know, it was a bit of a shock. Bit of a shock. I didn't know he was ill and was battling, health ailments to the point that it took him out of, out of the public eye for a good period of time, I should say. He wasn't at, not that I paid attention, but to what owner was there, but apparently he was not there at the NFL scouting combine. He was not in Green Bay in last April for the draft. But very sad. Very, very, very sad. Then, hard to believe that the elder, especially comparing him to the elder owners, the Bob Crafts and the Jerry Joneses and the Mike Brownses of the world, that those guys outlived Jim Irsay. Crazy. But rest in peace to Jimmy Irsay at the age of 65. Quick baseball here before we say goodbye. Tariq Skubal was great. Put on an absolutely masterclass of a performance over the holiday weekend. Complete game. He's the best pitcher in the American League without a shadow of a doubt. And the Detroit Tigers, without a shadow of a doubt, are the best team in the American League still through the first 2 months of the year. Dodgers and the Mets over the weekend. Juan Soto still searching for that first big-time Mets moment. Had an opportunity to break the game open yesterday. Walked away with a sacrifice fly that was productive, nevertheless, to tie the game up for the Mets against the White Sox on Monday. Had some opportunities to get that all-time clutch Met moment, his first of what you would think would be many as a New York Metropolitan. Over the weekend, only was about feet away from hitting a home run early in the game against the Dodgers on Saturday night. Settled for a double. Had an opportunity to walk the game off and to break the game open in moments against the Dodgers and that extra inning affair on Friday night. Still searching for that not all time, but for that first memorable moment as a New York Met. They took 2 out of 3 from the Dodgers, which you like to see. Got a nice outing from Kodai Senga the other night on Sunday Night Baseball. I said it on Twitter, said it again, the moment of that game, Dodgers have runners on second and third, nobody out. And they get the fly out, throw them out at the plate, double play. Tyrone Taylor, center field, big play in the game. Originally ruled safe at the plate. They went back, they challenged it, reviewed it, got it the call right, got it reversed. Dodgers walked away with nothing. Mets got some offense early, and that's all they needed. That was the moment of that, and having the bases loaded in the top of the 5th inning was the 2 moments of that game on Saturday. Couldn't get any runs across in the extra frames against the Dodgers on Friday night. They made up for it with a nice victory and some big-time hits with runs scoring position on Saturday. So the Mets, they got a nice laugher with the White Sox and the Rockies, forthcoming. The Dodgers are in Cleveland, took care of business last night. The Fighting Phils, albeit they had the 9-game winning streak, brought to a halt this weekend in Sacramento. They're one of the hotter teams in baseball. Keep an eye out for them. And for whatever the reason, the Atlanta Braves, any time and every single time they get to about the 500 threshold or a game or so over 500, they cannot catch fire and get to that 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 plus over 500 mark for the year. And they always find themselves to fall into a little bit of a rut, and you check, they're a game or 2 or 3 below 500, and they got to put together 2, 3, sometimes maybe possibly on a given circumstance 4 wins in a row to get themselves back to break even, and they just have not been able to catch that additional momentum once they get to the 500 and the 500 mark for the 2025 season. Losing a series to the San Diego Padres over the weekend, which was rough, but keep an eye on the Braves along with the Phils and the Mets within the National League East. Well, That's your show. A quick one at that. A new episode of the I'm Till I Can Tell You His podcast is in the books. Like what you heard, new to the show, please do not hesitate to subscribe. Follow yours truly on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, the works at the J Shield. Again, follow the show on, subscribe right up here. Until Friday, you guys be safe, be well, peace.